Hello and welcome everybody for our knowledge sharing series under the India EU ICT Standardizing project. And today we have a very interesting topic because it's very hot these days about smart cities and especially intelligent transport systems. So today our topic of the webinar is standardizing and integrating smart cities, a transport use case. And with us, we have a very interesting set of speakers today. We are having the One Transport Consortium from London, UK, going to talk about various issues. But before we go into our panel discussion, we first have a small presentation by Dr. Rafael Cepeda from Interdigital, and Dr. Rafael is leading the IoT and smart city activities for Interdigital's European office in London. He holds an MBA and MSc in Financial Management from Rotterdam School of Management and a PhD and MSc degrees in Communication System and Signal Processing from the University of Bristol. He joined Interdigital from British Sky Broadcasting, where he led research on future wireless technologies. Before this position, he was a principal research engineer at Toshiba Research Europe Limited. His more than 16 years of professional activities have conducted to several publications and granted patents. Rafael is a chartered engineer, fellow of the Institution of Engineering and Technology, senior member of the IEEE, and a Sainsbury Management Fellow. So, welcome, Dr. Rafael. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Sachin, for the introduction.
So we are more than happy to have you today, and I give the floor to you. And also, just for housekeeping, that we have a questions tab in this GoToWebinar software, so the participants might ask their questions using the tab, and you can answer them when you are finishing your presentation, right? So over to you.
Very good. Thank you. So today we want to start with a quick presentation about the one initiative that we are running in the UK, and through this initiative we want to introduce the concept of smart cities and how we see problems emerging from all the different activities in the current smart city projects. So the topic of this discussion and presentation today is standardizing and integrating smart cities, and we are using a transport use case developed and currently running in the UK. So I'll move to the next slide. So the first point we want to raise here is that what we see in smart cities and intelligent transport solutions current in different developments are different isolated geographies. You see different technologies. These different solutions and city deployments have bespoke and incompatible solutions with multiple different providers. And what is actually causing all these different technologies and isolation is that we have locked data in different silos, so the data is not accessible to multiple entities or partners to actually see what is possible to create innovation based on data. So what we really need is data-driven solutions that are integrated, and for this we need to facilitate multiple opportunities and see how currently systems can be in some ways integrated with future systems. So we are talking about brownfield, when you have multiple systems, multiple solutions running in your city or in your current transport system, and then you talk about new deployments of technology, and sometimes it's also called bluefield, where you don't have any compatibility with previous systems. But what we're looking at is how you integrate these two things together and how you create multiple opportunities. So the activity we're doing in the UK, or the initiative, is called One Transport. One Transport, what we are trying to do is to create a marketplace for data and data services where multiple data producers can actually put their data sets for the public to use. This has to be under strict control, so data publishers can decide who accesses the data, under what conditions, what circumstances, what data agreements, and then data users can actually subscribe to multiple data sets and define what they want to use and what conditions, and how this can be leveraged to create more solutions. So far, the project has won 2 awards for the best solution for transportation and logistics, and also the Connected Transportation Excellence. So I think now it's time to start talking about what creates this marketplace, and how this can actually be real. So I'll go through the different key points that we believe that are the important factors to enable one of these marketplaces. So the first one is to have a clear vision. So if you see the situation in the UK, and I believe this is all around the world, you have multiple local authorities, and these local authorities have different data sets. All are closed. It's difficult to access them. The innovation is not very clear how you can create a solution for a city and then transfer it to another city. And the quality of data and the possibilities to discover data and use it is very difficult, because all systems are different. So a possible solution, and what we're doing in One Transport, is to create a marketplace where you have a single platform based on standards that enables publish one and distribute to many kind of system or framework, where you have the facilities to publish your data once, and many people can subscribe to those data sets. In the same way, if you want to share data with local authorities, you can do so. And if different corporations want to access your data set, they can also do it. But maybe the conditions for doing this are different, because you may charge for accessing data for commercial purposes.
Audio's dropped off.
So now, if we talk about the technology that is required to enable this framework, it has to be standardized. It has to be an open standard, so you create a framework where multiple vendors can actually deploy the same OneM2M standard or any other standard, and they can connect to each other, so that creates federation of systems. And the particular technology we are using is OneM2M. It's led by 8 international standardization bodies. It has more than 200 supporting companies. It's not dependent on any industry or sector, so it can take data from any different stream. So it could be transportation data, health data, or energy data, for example. It has also common interfaces, so people can actually use the data and access it in a common way. And it's cloud-based, so it can be accessible anywhere in the world. So this leads to the opportunity for developers or people accessing data to create solutions that can be expanded to multiple regions and multiple countries. So that really stimulates innovation and the transferability of solutions across the world. The third point that is important for creating this marketplace is engagement. So in One Transport, we are concentrated on event management, from large to regular frequency events. So 3 of our main use cases are Silverstone Formula 1, Watford Football Stadium, and Park and Ride in the Oxford County Council and City Council. So what we are doing with this event management is to engage more with the users of these events, help with traffic management, and in that way create a better experience for people attending these events, and at the same time helping local residents to have a better image or perception of these large events and the disruption these events may cause. But an important part of a marketplace is to have people actually using data. So that's hackathons and engagement with developers and private sector willing to put more data sets or solutions based on the data sets already in the platform. For the authorities, the project created a transport data initiative framework for discussion. It's important to mention that this TDI forum is actually independent from the One Transport project. It was created as a part of the project, but it became independent, so local authorities can discuss issues about data, how it is handled, what their future roadmap is, and also share ideas and concerns about their data usage. And once you have these two groups, authorities and developers and people accessing the platform, you also need to create a framework for those two sectors to join forces and to explore different solutions. And that is in the form of ideathon, how we see it. And in this ideathon, what we do is we have the input from local authorities and the private sector. They work together and they co-create solutions based on available data sets and different ideas. The fourth point is to focus on realizing benefits. So smart city concepts or solutions and intelligent transport systems have to be backed up with clear business models and also have a good understanding of what the indirect benefits are. So how these solutions will actually benefit people and how different companies and cities can use these platforms or these marketplaces in a way that they will become self-sustainable in the future in terms of monetization and who will be actually paying for all this platform and technology deployment. And so once you have those business models established, you need to have multiple partners. So in this case, we have multiple local authorities and Highways England providing use cases and giving us the information about the real needs. We have other partners doing sensor integrations, analytics integration, developing concept applications. We are also developing tools and software development kits for Android and Apple phones. So we've reduced the friction for developers to actually take on board a new standard like 1M2M. An important part of this platform and this framework is to have a data broker, which is an entity that will be looking at how data is shared, how the data transactions happen, and this data broker can actually be one local authority, multiple local authorities, or the platform provider. It depends on who wants to control the data or have a better visualization of how data is flowing. But this can be assigned to our entities. And so once we have all those established key factors, we need to really understand what the learnings are from this. So I'll share some of the learnings we have during this deployment and this model. So one is understanding, and this understanding materializes in how data is positioned in the platform, and how this data creates like a progressive value for authorities or for data publishers, data consumers. So first you have rough data, which is data that you may not want to publish to all the public at once, but you still need to have feedback. You need to have better understanding of how to publish it in the future in a more open way. You need to understand how to enhance it, how to enhance the data sets. Then once you have enhanced your draft data, it becomes like in an intermediate state where you make it discoverable. Then you can align with multiple standards. An example of this is that if you have transportation data in a standardized format that is only available for or aligned with the transportation industry, then you may want to make this data also compatible with healthcare or energy sector form of publishing data. And that is possible if you have a horizontal platform that aggregates and creates a framework for creating this kind of, let's say, transitions from standard to standard. Once you have these, let's say, key data sets that are at an intermediate state, then you talk about having premium data, which is the data that offers more insight. So it's data coming from different analytic engines and data that explore other data sets and integrates the information that is gathered from those different data sets and creates a high-value channel or high-value information system to create more personalized services and better city planning, for example. And so once you have a good understanding of data, you start innovating and discovering the real potential of your different applications. So if you see current solutions regarding the Internet of Things or smart cities, they mostly focus on a particular problem. They solve that problem, and then because they are usually platforms that are locked to a single vendor or solutions that are not open to a wider audience, they just have a limited value. So the value is up to the problem they are solving. But there is not like an evolutionary system that can create a framework for more, let's say, small companies or big corporations to actually have a look at the data, see what they can do, and create solutions that work on top of these initial solutions. And that, if you see the diagram, One Transport is somewhere exploring how the transition between a point solution is progressing towards a more wider scope of multiple solutions working together and creating a cumulative value for the marketplace or the solutions. And finally, once you have this kind of evolution, you start moving from the faith that you see in IoT solutions to a fact. And this is materialized with faith is when you start, for example, aggregating data, you see that multiple authorities are sharing data in a single platform, that they are creating a better information system for a wider region. But then you see how these combined data sets create solutions or enable solutions for real event management at different scales. And then you see how these data sets help to create a better understanding of issues related to data, related to publishing data. And then you look at rapid integration of new data sets and sensors because you have a common standardized platform. So this enables economies of scale and reducing costs. Also, it's not anymore about, for example, private customers deploying sensors, but they can also provide analytics and premium data based on their sensor deployments. And you can also enable rapid visualization of data sets, discoverable solutions, and these solutions, because they are in a multi-region framework, they can go very rapid to market from pilot to expansion in multiple regions and multiple countries in the future. And a fact of this is then when you have a very low friction for people adopting standards, so you have multiple formats for people to access the platform. So if we look at the key takeaways from this marketplace. So I think from our perspective, we can say that it is possible to create an open data ecosystem in the transport sector. Using global standards is essential to enable this sharing of data and collaboration to create value. And this marketplace has to grow and become an ecosystem where multiple partners can join forces. You can see new technologies coming on board, and that is the purpose of One Transport, to start expanding and being deployed in different countries and possibly in different sectors as well. So with that, I think I can answer some questions or go straight into the panel discussion.
Yeah, so thank you for such a wonderful and quick overview about the work that you are doing. Here in India, smart cities also is a big topic, and as we are talking today, we have a developers event happening here with 1M2M. We also have some HC people here, so it's very timely, this topic that we are having with you. And as we move to the panel discussion, I'm sure we'll have questions also from the Indian side. So maybe proceed with the panel discussion. Just allow me to introduce the panel, and you may then start. And I think some of the panelists were on mute. I don't know if Tim Gammons, can you speak? I don't know if your mic is...
Yes, I'm in the same room as Raphael, so we're on the same phone.
Okay, and so is Katie. Miss Katie is in the same room?
Yeah. I'm in the same room as well.
Okay, so I think it's only Mr. Tim, which is not, or Mr. Trevor is also in the same room? Okay.
I'm not in the same room.
Okay, so I'll just give quick bios, and so that people who are listening, they know who we are having the panel discussion with. So I first go with Mr. Tim Gammons, who is director at Arup for the Smart Mobility and ITS business. Tim Gammons is a director at Arup with responsibility for the Smart Mobility and ITS business. He has more than 30 years experience in the transport and control systems for the movement of people and goods. Tim worked in R&D, planning and implementation of transport solutions at several organizations, including Department of Transport, UK highway agencies, and private sector. Notable is his 15 years leading the delivery of some of the UK's first ITS solutions for inter-urban highways, and a period of 2 years in Bangkok as technical advisor to the Royal Thai government. His professional interests focus on mobility measures to influence travel behavior, and his current projects include creating an open marketplace for data and travel services through the One Transport Internet of Things platform in support of connected and autonomous vehicles. And he is chair of IET's Transport Sector Executive, and he also serves as honorary secretary for ITS UK's Smart Environment Interest Group. Another panelist we have is Mr. Trevor Brennan. He is strategy and program manager at Hertz and Broxbourne, Hertfordshire County Council. Mr. Trevor is owner and director of ModeSplit, which is a specialist sustainability and transport consultancy. He is an experienced program and people manager with a 19-year career record of delivering sustainable transport schemes both within the public and private sector. Currently, Trevor is working at Hertfordshire County Council and is the sponsor for One Transport, which is county's smart transport program. Another panelist we have is Ms. Katie Parnell, Principal Bid Management Officer, Innovation and Research, Localities, Policies and Programs from Oxfordshire County Council, following an undergraduate degree in Human Sciences at Oxford University and an Environmental Management and Technology Master's degree at Oxford Brookes University. He has been working in local government in the transport sector in a variety of roles for coming up for 10 years now. Prior to her current role, she spent a number of years of sustainable travel and transport behavior change programs of various kinds. She currently works with Oxfordshire County Council's Innovation and Research Team as Principal Bid Management Officer, overseeing innovative projects around transport data and its use, for which she has secured funding, including managing Oxfordshire's role within the One Transport initiative. So over to you, Dr. Rafael, and I hope you are going to give tough time to our panelists with your questions. And I will also sending you some questions from India. We are already receiving some of them. So over to you.
Thank you. So I think the first question is regarding the public and private partnerships. I'd like to hear what the opinion is about these activities and if there are any advantages or any bad things that you have seen from this cooperation. Who wants to start? Tim?
Yeah, this is Tim speaking. Yeah, I think it's very important that there is this partnership working, and the way this particular project works is that nobody is contracted to anybody else. It's a collaborative agreement trying to achieve a shared goal, where the public sector partners are trying to deliver a better service for transport and the travellers and the residents, but the private sector are able to bring their knowledge and expertise to help the local authorities deliver on their vision. So it is very important, and it can only happen if the local authority data that underpins it is made available. So the private sector cannot do anything unless it can get access to the data. So it is a very tight bond that's required between private and public sector to make this work.
Do you have any view from the local authorities?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting way of working. It's very different from subcontracting out to the private sector. Being able to kind of understand better how the private sector works as someone with a sort of public sector background has been very interesting to learn from as part of this project. Seeing the different perspectives and the different experience from the different areas, I think, has been key.
Very good. So I think one of the questions has been what is really making this initiative different? Why we should care about one transport, and why we may say that this is not the same as any other project or initiative in smart cities or intelligent transport systems?
I'll probably come in at that point. I think from certainly from Hertfordshire County Council point of view, I think where it is different is it's trying to come up with practical solutions. We deal with, as a highways authorities, every day, and the advantage of using One Transport in terms of its digital platform is we can actually look and see how we manage our network better and actually come up with, hopefully, practical solutions which would make transport services being delivered within the county more cost effective, giving our residents a more effective journey time to and from their home. So for us, it is really, it's one of the first instances where data is being used on a day-to-day level to actually come up with practical solutions.
Something I think it's also important to note that, certainly in my experience with a lot of smart cities work, it's quite focused on a geographic area usually, whereas the One Transport project is much wider than that. It's looking at different regions, looking at how we can integrate our data together at different sort of geographical scales as well as within a particular city or area.
Yeah, I was just going to add something, Raphael. I think what's unique about the project, certainly in the UK, is that for many years the transport sector has worked in its own silo trying to come up with solutions. But this particular project has brought a new thinking from a different sector, mobile comms and the technology sector, and they've helped the transport sector understand what the possibilities might be from new technologies. So it's brought some new ideas and a very different way of valuing benefits and valuing developments that hasn't been seen before within the transport sector.
I think along those lines, Tim, if you may say, there are some mature or almost mature technologies out there that could be applied to smart cities or intelligent transport systems. So do you see any benefits of using standards, or is this something that has to be endorsed?
I think standards are very useful, and one example is where across Europe we use a DATEX2 standard related to transport data, which has been very helpful. But what we need to realise is that a lot of the transport data that we actually need to help us improve journeys might be within the health sector or the education sector or the energy sector, and they don't use DATEX2. They don't need to. They have their own standards. So it's particularly important, I think, to be able to use a product like the 1M2M international standard that sits above these silos and allows us to bring in data that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to access.
Any view from the authorities? Do you think that standards are required for kind of marketplaces? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of one of the issues UK authorities have, certainly in the wider data agenda, is principally the data we collect. There is no standard per se, and I think trying to understand fully what data sets local authorities are collecting would make it more cost effective, because with limited resourcing we can't carry on collecting everything. So if we had some sort of set of standard data sets, it would certainly focus our efforts, and that's the same comments I've been getting off a lot of UK authorities. So but on the flip side is we want flexibility as well. So I think some standardization is key, but not everything has to be the same.
Yeah, very good. And so it was mentioned before, I think Katie mentioned that there were some benefits from the multi-county integration, but do you actually see this as a threat in other sectors, or do you see that cooperation is needed in multiple sectors?
I think definitely that it's needed between multiple sectors. I was actually chatting to a colleague the other day who works in the social care sector, and he was saying about some of the challenges that they have with getting carers to where they need to be within kind of some quite strict time constraints that they've got. So they've obviously got issues that they need to sort out, which are related to a lot of the transport concerns that we've got.
What about competition against other regions to capture funding or capture people to come to live in those regions?
Well, I guess a bit of healthy competition is good from that perspective. I mean, of course, Oxfordshire is better than Hertfordshire, but I'm sure Trevor would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm from Bedfordshire, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a bit of competition will help us improve, I think.
Yeah, I think Katie's right. I think competition does drive innovation, but adversely, I think a lot of authorities are chasing their tails, because we're all potentially bidding for the same single pot of money, and actually the advantage of One Transport is we have had to work together in terms of the four key authorities, so that's been an advantage in terms of understanding their agendas and how the synergy. But yeah, I think lots of authorities are chasing the same funding, and I think that can have a detrimental effect, because what you do find is maybe some of the larger metropolitan authorities are capturing the large grants, so that does preclude some of the smaller authorities who might be as innovative. I know under the current UK government, the idea of competition is key, but I think working together is important, because I think we do come up with a better product at the end of it.
Okay, so in that case, what activities are you running to stimulate other local authorities to come together or to share knowledge?
Yeah, no, it's I think certainly from the work we've done today, that has been the key. I think if Hertfordshire went on their own, we wouldn't have been able to get as far as we can, because we've been working with our sister authorities in terms of what data collecting, what systems they've been using, and that has had an advantage for us.
Yeah, I would agree with what Trevor's just said, and I think one of the key things that Raphael mentioned as part of his presentation around the Transport Data Initiative is that we're trying to actually learn from what other authorities are doing as well, and encourage other authorities to link in with what we're doing so that we can get these benefits.
Very good. And so if we move away a bit from the technical angle, what non-technical challenges do you see in this kind of large-scale deployments of technology?
Not quite sure it's a technical challenge, but the main challenge, I think, is that is creating an open marketplace where people can access and use data to deliver services and create value for themselves, and also enhance the travel experience. But to do that, we need all of the data to be made available in one form or another. So what you find is that the early adopters, the early local authorities who are part of this, will be investing longer before they see a return on the investment. It'll be the last local authority that subscribes or joins that will get all the immediate benefits back. So there is maybe a lethargy in the market that local authorities are waiting to be the last rather than be the first, and so that is stalling, I think, the development of an open marketplace.
I definitely agree with that point, and particularly at the moment with the sort of funding situation that we have within the UK. Lots of local authorities are having reduced budgets at the moment, so any initiatives that they can kind of wait and come on at a later date that will then have the same benefits as they would coming on earlier is going to actually be more attractive for them.
Okay, so now if we move to data and how easy it is to put data in the platform. For this, I think this is a question mostly for the local authorities. What challenges do you see in opening data sets that are not public or in the process of creating a wider digital marketplace?
I think first and foremost, before we even get to the ease and difficulty of getting the data on the platform, I think from Herts County Council point of view, it was just understanding what data we hold, what benefits do we see on that, and actually trying to understand and capture that data. That's been quite hard for us. Actually getting the data on the platform, I think that's been the easier bit. Actually getting the sensors on street and things like that, and the contractors we have to go through, etc., etc. That's been the hard bit. Actually, the data on the platform has been relatively pain-free, and then I think we're at the other side now when we're trying to encourage and understand the quality of that data and actually how we use that data off the platform. I think that's the next stage, and we're starting to do that. But yeah, the difficulty hasn't been getting the data up on the platform and down. It's actually just capturing the data in the first place.
The same has been true very much for Oxfordshire as well. It took us a long time to identify even all of the different data assets that we hold, and then to understand what the quality of those different data sets actually is, and start to think about how that could be applied. One of the other aspects that's actually been also quite a challenge for us is actually the legal side of things. So data sharing agreements, the potential risks involved in opening up data sets that haven't previously been opened up to the public. A lot of local authorities are quite risk averse. So anything that has potential to kind of reflect badly or potential to be used in a way that would not be positive for us is something that sometimes comes up more strongly than you might expect under the particular circumstances. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Very good. So if we look at the different use cases that have been developed in One Transport, can you please elaborate on these use cases and what they're trying to solve? What were the main challenges or why they were selected?
Do you want to go first, Katie?
Yeah, can do. Yeah, so my main involvement has been around the Oxford Park and Ride use case. We selected this as a challenge because it involves integrating quite a variety of different data sets from different areas. So we've got data sets from our urban traffic management control system. We've got assets from other organisations such as the City Council, the parking data, and bus data from bus operators, as well as new sensor data for journey times. So it's bringing together all of these different data assets as a way to provide better information to the general public about what their options are for travelling into Oxford. At the moment, our city is quite congested. It's a very sort of historic city with a layout which isn't really ideal for large quantities of traffic driving into the city centre. So one of the key ways that we try to deal with that particular issue around congestion is through our park and rides. It's actually often much faster for people to use the park and ride rather than to travel all the way in by car. So using this set of different data sets to provide people with the information that is actually going to be more convenient and easier for them to travel into the city using the park and ride by creating an application which will give them this information will help us to achieve our objective of reduced congestion into the city caused by daily events and issues around when people are just travelling for work and things like that. So that's why we decided to go with that particular use case.
I'll pick up the case study Hertfordshire County Council been involved in is working with Watford Football Club. For anybody out there, principally Watford Football Club are based within Watford Town Centre. They regularly have 1 or 2 home games. Our case study is principally based around looking at how over 20,000 home fans come to the football match on a Saturday afternoon. Principally, games in the UK kick off at about 3 p.m, which is a peak shopping time in terms of Watford Town Centre. And principally, the case study we've been working on is really to understand how the interaction between 20,000 additional people coming into an already congested town centre, and how we manage the highway network, but also public transport network. Also trying to fully understand how we fully utilise car park provision within the town itself. The principal outcomes of Watford and the work we've been doing is fourfold. Firstly, trying to give the people coming to the home matches a better understanding and a more consistent idea of how long it's going to take them to get to each game, but also how long and how consistent it is in terms of getting away from each game. It's also about understanding and trying to better improve the traffic flow within the town centre. As I said, you've got shoppers and you've got people coming to the game, both principally leaving and coming at the same time. So from a highway capacity point of view, it's about better routing and about allowing a more consistent and better traffic flow within the town. As I said, it's also about utilising and understanding the number of car park spaces we have, so we can route and tell people coming to the game exactly what car parks are full when they reach capacity, but also redirecting them to car parks which are under capacitized, and also potentially directing them to car parks slightly beyond where they would normally park, but because of the lack of congestion, it's probably easier and quicker to walk in. And also trying to actively encourage people coming to the game, not principally just to simply drive to the game. Watford Town Centre has a whole host of different public transport options, but principally how people access the game is to simply drive and park, and what we're trying to do is encourage people to simply move away from that. In terms of the key challenges we faced in terms of Watford, it's bringing it back to the data. It's about understanding what data sets we have and trying to use those data sets and the understanding around One Transport to try and target those 4 or 5 key things we're looking for the case study. So that's principally where we are. In terms of timescales for the case study, the current UK Premiership is now finished, so we are trying to capture and organise the data we've collected game on game, and I think the next key milestone is going and sitting back down with Watford Football Club and just basically trying to understand and sort of promote the learning we've got from the case study.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. I've got two questions, or a few questions from the audience. I think I'll try to answer the first two with the input of the panelists. The first one is what it takes to start such an initiative. Is it authorities or a technical company? The second one is how to replicate such an initiative. We are at just the beginning of ITS here in India with public transport in focus. Can it be done phase-wise? So we can share how One Transport started. I think it was initially an idea of interdigital. We were developing this 1M2M platform, and then there was a governmental call for solutions for local authorities, and we proposed 1M2M as a framework to help local authorities to understand better their data and in relation to transportation. The first step, because this was actually done in stages, the first step was to do a feasibility study. For this feasibility study, it was essential to have like transportation experts like Arab, local authorities. At that time was only Buckinghamshire, and experts in analytics and sensors. So it has to be a combined effort if something like this has to happen, or or to create a framework where multiple views and multiple partners can have a voice. Any other comments from the panel?
I think also funding as well. That was probably missing. I think for all these things, if the agenda's relatively new to an authority, I think the fact that there was some funding available really to sort of give certainly from a local authority point of view that opportunity really to try and understand that. And without the funding, we probably wouldn't have had the capacity to fully understand the benefits of transport data and the platform itself. So I think a certain amount of funding is key. I don't think it's all about funding, because I think you also need people in place, but having the funding available has been helpful.
Yeah, I was going to add something around funding as well there, Trevor. The funding model by the UK government was interesting, that the local authorities get 100% funding, which allowed them to, in many cases, recruit specific staff to put on the project to make sure that the requirements of the private sector were delivered. The private sector were funded 50% of their costs to work on the project. So it was a stimulation of the local authorities and also the private sector to work together, but it wasn't fully funded, because the idea is that the private sector are looking to try and exploit future products from this. So funding was quite important. Certainly it wouldn't have happened without the funding, I think, and that's why nothing has happened in the previous 5 years, because funding's not been available. So it was a kickstarter that was very important.
I've got another question from the audience. So it's how we at India EU standardization project how we at India EU standardization project facilitate the Indian smart cities to learn from one transport. From our angle, we are happy to share as much as we can. We have a cloud-based solution. We also have the idea of try before you buy. I don't think it's healthy for cities to actually commit to solutions without actually understanding what they are buying into. I think it's also important to have the view of multiple partners, so have the ability or the capacity to ask authorities, sensor providers, transport experts, how they perceive the solution and how they see this as a real, tangible solution for their regions.
I just add to that one of the things that we are producing as part of the project is a set of white papers, which will help others learn from the experience that we've gone through as a consortium, and learn from some of the things that we've come across as part of the project.
Okay. I've got another question. We have a series of events that the project can facilitate here in India. How easy possible is to engage one transport into digital for a hackathon here in India, for example? Would be good to know about your ideas for other markets. So in terms of international engagement, I think the good point about 1M2M is that it is a global standard. As I mentioned before, the system we are deploying is a cloud-based solution. So I think for a hackathon or for exploration in India, that would be possible, but we would need to discuss logistics and how this can be done.
I think the other thing as well on that, Raphael, is the concept of using this international standard 1M2M for the platform was particularly for that, so that within this ecosystem or environment, you could have an app developer in America or an app developer in India being able to access data in another country and replicate the services they're delivering in their home country. So you actually allow the private sector to have a wider audience for their apps and analytics. So that is something that we deliberately wanted to use the 1M2M standard to allow that sort of concept to be developed. So it's maybe something that we would like to explore further.
Another question. Are you planning any activities in India, any collaborations that can be shared? I don't think we are doing that at the moment, but I think we as a consortium are happy to hear suggestions and to hear ideas. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Another question. There was one question from a participant. Could you give an example, deployment and developer resources available? So we have Android and iOS software development kits. These are open source, and these are available through GitHub. If you want more information about this, you can go to our website. If you search for onetransport.net.uk, then you have our contact details, and we are happy to help you or to guide you through those tools.
There's one last question, Rafael, from the same person. Could you share your experience using 1M2M? Was it user-friendly? Was it a lot of effort? Did you use an open source software? Would you recommend it?
We've been developing 1M2M for a while, since the beginning of the standardization process. I think as any new technology, it's difficult to actually start using it as there are new requirements, different setups. So what we've done to reduce the friction and to enable others to work better with 1M2M was to create software development kits. So we have different tools available in Android, iOS, Java, and this is basically, we created these tools to speed up the transition for people to actually use the standard without really having to crack down the standard and to understand how it can be actually used. There are, in the same way as Interdigital has a 1M2M engine, there are some other activities. So the idea is not that this will come only from one company, Interdigital in this case. It will come and it is available from multiple sites, and the idea is to enable federation where you have, like, for example, open source 1M2M deployments connecting to more mature and more robust commercial offerings like Interdigital. So there are multiple options for this. More questions?
Yeah. So maybe, at this point, I would like to thank you, Rafael, for giving the presentation and organizing such a knowledgeable panel. And I would also individually like to thank all the panelists here for taking out the time. So we are running a project here which is till end of 2019, which is about India and EU collaboration on ICT standardization topics, which are like 5G, intelligent transport system, network function virtualization, and software-defined networking. So we would appreciate that we could engage with initiatives like of yours, and learn in this part of the world that what is we can do, and basically not repeat the same mistakes, and learn from the best practices. So thank you once again, and we have recorded this webinar, so once the video is ready, I can send the link back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good day.
Good day. Good day to you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.